So thank you everyone for joining us for today's session. We're going to be looking at some research metrics for you to use for your promotion application. So we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands within our footprint area, the university footprint areas, the Awabakal, Darkinjung, Biripi, Worimi, Wanneroo and Eora nations. We also pay respect to the wisdom of elders past and present. I would like to extend this acknowledgement and pay my respects to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander peoples joining us online today. So just a reminder, today's session is being recorded and will be posted online afterwards. We will have time for questions at the end, but feel free to pop any questions that you have in the chat or unmute yourself and let us know if you've got any questions. So today's session is being presented by myself, Jessica Birchall, and Nicole Fall-Brown. So as you can see on the screen, we're research liaison librarians at the university. This role provides research support for HDR students and for staff for any research related needs. As you can see on this slide, each of us provide different support to different schools. So if you wish to get in contact with us, please feel free to email us, email the appropriate librarian for your school to discuss any additional help or to set up an appointment. Our contact details are available on the library website. At the moment, we're looking for a fourth member to join the team. So if you're in any one of these schools, feel free to reach out to Ruth Talbot-Stokes or Kylie Clarkson, and they'll be able to refer your inquiry on to the appropriate person. So it's just an overview of today's session. We're going to let you know how to obtain some common publication metrics using the academic dashboard, SciVal and Altmetric Explorer. So we'll be doing a demo in SciVal and Altmetric Explorer and showing you how to pull some of those metrics out for your promotions. So this slide outlines the publications metrics information that's needed for an academic promotion. So candidates are required to produce a portfolio that outlines activities and achievements in each of the three areas of teaching and learning, research and innovation, it's including the scholarship of teaching, and engagement. So the candidate must demonstrate their achievements and the impact of their work through appropriate evidence since their last promotion or appointment. So in these sections here, you would need to include publications metrics such as citation information, field-weighted citation impact, H-index, publications according to journal quality, such as, quartile, including those quartile 1 publications. So some of the metrics that you need from promotion applications can already be found on the university's academic dashboard. So if you're not sure how to access the dashboard or how to use the dashboard, there was a recorded session last week presented by Research Advantage that gave a really great overview of the dashboard. So the recording of that session is available on the Research Advantage SharePoint page, and access to the academic dashboard is available on the Academic Excellence SharePoint page. So just make sure, you bookmark that page so you just have easy access to that. The academic dashboard publishes relevant metrics from various platforms. So we've got some internal platforms, so your HR Online, Nexus, Neuro, Newstar and RIMS, and also some external sites, so ORCID and SciVal. So the academic dashboard shows you individual metrics on your personal overview page. And on the benchmarking pages, you can look at other University of Newcastle academics. So it's a University of Newcastle dashboard, so it's only looking at a University of Newcastle academic, so you can have a look and sort of benchmark yourself alongside them. You can filter the views by colleges and schools. I really recommend you have a look at the recorded Research Advantage session on it. It goes into a lot of detail in showing you how to use the dashboard. So some of the metrics that are included on the personal page, the personal overview of the dashboard include your H5 index, field weighted citation impact by year, average publications in quartile 1 journals according to SJR rankings, the percentage of international collaboration, and your citations per publications. So this information is received from various internal and external platforms, databases, as I mentioned. So it's really important to keep your information on those profiles up to date to ensure that the dashboard has accurate data. So it's probably good practice to check in with some of these profiles regularly to make sure your information is up to date across all the platforms, and also that your information is connecting to the right places. So this ensures that data across all your platforms are accurate. So if you have a look at the academic dashboard and notice that some information is missing or some of the data seems out of date, or if you've not used the academic dashboard, it's a really good idea that you check the list of the sites that feed the dashboard and make sure that the information is correct and it's also connecting to the right places. So you can see the list of sites on the slide here. So an ORCID. If you don't have an ORCID, please register and use an ORCID. It's a unique identifier that's connected to researchers that can follow them throughout their career. So you can register for an ORCID through your Neuro account. Once you have your ORCID, please use it. Connect it to pop it on your name and attribution when you're submitting publications. And then make sure you connect your ORCID to your Neuro account and your Scopus account. The SciVal dashboard is the SciVal database is the one that's feeding information into the academic dashboard. So if you have your ORCID connected to your Scopus, you'll be making sure that the correct publications and correct information is coming across. Information on how to register, use and connect your ORCID to different accounts is available on a library LibGuide, a researcher profiles LibGuide. So the link's just been put into the chat. So have a look at that. And if you've got any questions, just please reach out to us. It's important to check in with your Neuro account regularly. Make sure you have a look at the publications that are coming across and accept or decline any publications, and then also nominate publications for assessment. It's also important that you put FOR codes on your research outputs. HR Online, have a look and see if your appointment details are correct. Nexus, again, ensuring that FOR codes are up to date. In Newstar, having a look at your HDR supervision, student details, make sure they're captured correctly. And have a look at RIMS to ensure that your grant details are correct as well. But if you have any questions related to that, please feel free to reach out to a research liaison librarian. So as well as the academic dashboard, there can be other sites for you to have a look at. Or if you find that the data with the academic dashboard is not quite right, you can have a look at some other databases for these metrics. So we're going to show you how to access two types of metrics today. So we have traditional citation-based metrics and alternative metrics. So traditional metrics involve around those citation counts and publication numbers. We've got some examples there. So related to your H index, journal impact factor, field-weighted metrics, number of publications and citation counts. Alternative metrics, they measure impacts in other formats, such as media mentions, so social media, news, Facebook mentions, references and policies and patents, and views and download numbers. So if you're talking about, the impact of your work, if your work has been mentioned in a policy, that's a really great way to show, my research is being used to create policies, which shows, a lot of impact. So one of the databases that we'll be giving a demo in today is SciVal. So SciVal is the database that is connected to your academic dashboard. It's a metrics database that provides data from the Scopus database. So it's important to remember that articles and research, they need to be indexed in Scopus to be included in SciVal. So Scopus is produced by Elsevier, as you all know, and a very large academic publishing company. They specialise in scientific, technical and medical content, but it is a multidisciplinary publisher, so it does publish a lot of different subjects. But you can see across that sort of subject coverage at the bottom, it's a lot of health sciences, physical sciences, life sciences that make up the bulk of that particular database. So another database that can give you metrics is Insights. So this is pulling metrics data from Web of Science. So again, same principle, it needs to be, your research needs to be indexed in Web of Science to be included in Insights. Web of Science is produced by Clarivate, another academic publishing company, again, specialising in scientific, technical and medical content, but again, also a multidisciplinary database. You can see at the bottom, it's got different categories for the different subject areas. So we're mentioning this other database because it's important when you're using your metrics to sort of show the metrics that best suit you. Generally, as you can see by the numbers across the journal titles, Web of Science has over 21,000. Scopus has over 27,000. So Scopus is slightly larger. So generally speaking, most people look better, their metrics look better in SciVal, but it's a really good idea to check across the databases to make sure that you're showing the data that best suits you. And that's why we always recommend when you're including metrics in your application to reference where you've gotten that information from. So it gives a bit of context around, you know, the meaning of the metrics. So we're not going to do a demo in Insights today. We're just going to be looking at SciVal, just because that's the database that populates the academic dashboard. But if you'd like to learn more about Insights, feel free to contact your research liaison librarian. This is just an example of some of the metrics that are available across SciVal and Insights. So as we mentioned before, you know, your traditional citation-based metrics. So we're looking at citation counts, the total per year, your field-weighted metrics, publications in top citation percentiles, and publications in quartiles, according to quartile rankings. Information like authorship positions, so looking at whether you're first, last, or corresponding author. You can look at your publications by the FOR code. You can look at things like other people that are citing your research, and also, you know, where they're from, so their institution and the countries that they're located in. And it can also look at your collaboration, so looking at who you're collaborating with and where they're from as well. Also includes information about the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So you'll sort of find that's in sort of the more recent publications that are coming across, that they're indexing particular goals to articles as well. So now we'll have a look at SciVal. So Nicole's going to take us on a SciVal demonstration.
Thank you. So as the slide says here, to log in to SciVal, you do need to have an account, but if you already have an account for Science Direct or Scopus, you're using the same password to log in. And if you are going to access, you can follow along today, or if you're accessing it for the first time, then you just, when we log in, you'll be clicking sign in by your institution. And what we're going to look at is how to add yourself, how to add a researcher. We'll have a look at the overview module, the benchmarking module, collaboration, and I'll show you how to add a few of the metrics to a report. I'm just going to switch screen shares. so to access SciVal, just from the library homepage, you scroll down to databases A to Z, and we'll just click S for SciVal, and it is just here on the side. Okay, so yeah, as I said, the first time you log in, you'll be prompted to create an account or sign in by the institution. You can see that it's already here logged me in. So this is the SciVal landing page. These 4 areas along the top are the areas that we actually have access to via our subscription. So as I mentioned today, we'll have a look at the overview, benchmarking and collaboration. From here, you can actually add yourself to the homepage area by typing in last name, first name, and hit find my profile, and that will actually sit on the front page for you. It also has some quick guides to using SciVal if you've not before. You've got some introductory things, and this one, number 3, will explain some of the metrics you see. And they have a list of webinars that are available to watch too, and they are run by the Elsevier company. SciVal also gets regularly updated, so you'll see little parts down the bottom here on latest releases that they've added. I'll just click into overview. The first time you log in, you will probably land here on institutions and groups, and your default will be the University of Newcastle. But what we've got here, so the first one here with the is the institutional groups. The second option is researchers. You can also create publication sets. So if you want to do an analysis on a certain group of your own publications, that's available in here too. You can do analysis by country, topics, and research areas. But today we're just going to sit here within the researcher so you can look up your own metrics. To add yourself, if you're not already here, we just click on add new and say define new researcher, and you will type your own name into here and select search. Today we are using Sarah Valkenburg's profile, so we'd like to thank her for letting us do that this morning. I'm going to type her in and hit search, and what will happen is you will see here that this is what it's found for Sarah. We've got little list publications, a subject area, and we're checking that we've got the right Sarah and that she's affiliated to the University of Newcastle. It do have it, if you type in your own name and you get a bit of a list happening here, it is worthwhile to just double check that not more than one profile belongs to you. Because if you do have more than one profile sitting here, you can actually select both of them, and then you click through to go to the box at the bottom there, which says Save Researcher, and it'll just ask you to confirm that all of the publications across those 2 profiles are you, and it will combine, sends off a request to combine those profiles into one. Now we're just saying we want to look at Sarah's profile today, and I say save, and that will load here on the side, and you'll see here now that I've got Sarah Valkenburg's in the side here, and it's ticked, so that's who we're looking at this morning. So what we see here on this overview page is up the top here, we're looking at SciVal will do the last 10 and 5 years. So we can do data from 2020 to 2022, 2018, 22 and so on. So you can see the list here as the data goes. So we might just click on 2018 through to 2023. And on the summary section, what we're looking at here is the overall research performance. So you can see between these years, just scholarly output of 13 and 61% of those are open access, which has a field-weighted citation impact of 1.93. So field-weighted citation impact, the average is 1. So she is 1.93. You can see that the citation count 155 and citations per publication is at 11.9. Career H index is 5, so meaning 5 publications have been cited at least 5 times, and the H5 index is 5 as well. So the H5 index is over the last 5 years. So scrolling down again, you can see publication share by subject area. It loads a little donut chart, but you can change these to whichever option you like to see. But it just tells you where your publications are sitting. So, and you can click on each. So this tells us 6 of those publications are sitting in psychology. We can click that again and it narrows it down. And it's very evenly half-paced. So applied developmental psychology has 1 publication, as does biological science. We'll go into topics in a moment. So if I scroll back up, we'll just move along these top areas here to show you some of the data that you can get. So clicking on topics, these are topics that are put together by within SciVal. So you've got 7 topics and 5 topic clusters. But what this is useful for in the topics area is you can see here for executive function, Stroop test and exercise, Sarah has 5 publications with a field-weighted citation impact of 3.03. And the prominence percentile is looking at how that subject area is tracking worldwide. So going up, it's in the 98th percentile. If we hover over this, some useful areas to look at are you've got your analyse activity of the researcher. So it'll tell you how many publications, collaborations that are sitting within this subject area. So we've mentioned that there's 5. 4 of those have international collaborations. We have a citation count of 108. Again, you can get various graphs on the bottom here too. If you wanted to see how you were tracking or looking in comparison to other people in the same topic area, you can select Analyse Worldwide. And if this topic is of interest to your area, what you can do is this page will tell us the summary of the topic, the top institutions publishing in this area. So they are listed underneath. Countries, but if we click on authors, we can then see who are the, it's automatically sorted by scholarly output, but you can change to field-weighted citation. We put that highest to lowest. We can see who is got the highest field-weighted citation impact in this subject area. You'll also be able to scroll through to find yourself within the list because you do have publications. But that's just a handy one to look at if you're looking at how your work is tracking against others in a similar field. Just going to click back on overview. So now if we click into collaboration, this one here is looking at your international collaborations, institutional only. So you can see here in international collaboration, Sarah's got 69% and has 9 outputs that have collaboration internationally, and 3 at a national level. If we scroll down, you can get some charts here on this area. And you've got top collaborating institutions underneath. Okay, so this will pick up obviously your local, but also everyone else that you've got collaborations with will pop up under here. Moving along to published. One of the good areas here is you can see here we've got the 13 scholarly outputs that we're tracking between these years. You've got some graphs here around your publication years. We can see outputs in top percentiles. So that is the share of publications for Sarah that are among the most cited publications worldwide. So in 2022, 20% of her publications were in the top 10% most cited publications worldwide. We can scroll down to publications in top journal percentiles. So because SciVal is Scopus and Elsevier product, it defaults here to CiteScore, which is a journal metric that sits within here. There's also SNP, but you might be more familiar with the SJR, which is the Stramago Journal ranking. So if we flick over to this one, this will tell us, we hover here, in 2022, 60% of the journals Sarah has published in are in the top 10% of journals indexed in SJR. You can keep scrolling down to see your most cited publications. So the impact of physical activity on brain structure and function in youth has been the top citations of 75. Just scrolling back up, the next few here are by authorship type. This is SciVal breaking down for you how many of your publications you have the first author. So Sarah has 7, she's last author on 1. And again, you can see the share percentile and the field weighted citation impact of those. The last column is the outputs in top 10%. So this one's handy to look at for your first author, last author, depending on your subject discipline, which one is better to write in. We can also break down by journal quartile. And similarly here, you'll see that the default's to CiteScore, so we'll change that to SJR. And we'll see on the side here that Sarah has 11 publications sitting in Q1 journals, 1 in a Q2 and 1 in a Q3. And the other one that is handy is by institution. So these are the list of your top 10 institutional affiliations. So you can see that Sarah is obviously just affiliated with these 3. We've also got, we flick along the top again, we've got viewed. So looking at your counts, the number of Scopus views that have been received for publications, the amount of citations received per publication. So you can see that Sarah has 155. So the peak there was at 103 in 2019. We've got citations per publication and tracking of field-weighted citation impact. I'm just going to click back at the start so we're on summary. One of the things that you can do here is add this data to a report. So if you were looking at certain things and we said that our overall research performance we wanted to add, you just click this button on the side here that says add to reporting, and it's just giving it a name, and we've said it's for Sarah Valkenwald, so we click save. And if I did want to go back into her published works and add in to the report the authorship level, so I'll say add that to reporting, and we're adding it to Sarah's report. Okay, save, and I'll add in the journal quartile, and we just say add to report. And as you do this, they all start to populate here in this reporting tab. The same thing, but then you'll get one and you can click here and it'll just load you at that area, or if we hover over that and come along to the side, you can say export the analysis, and you can export it across, or you can copy and edit. You can also export them as a PDF. Okay, so we're just going to move across to the top now on benchmarking. Benchmarking is useful for, you can use it for two functions. So we've got here, this one has defaulted to view the University of Newcastle and Macquarie University, but you can actually, if we put Sarah back in, it adds Sarah to the graph as well as the green line, and the University of Newcastle and Macquarie. So you can actually build graphs here based on if you would like to benchmark yourself with another researcher in the same area or at a different institution. You just use the side function again to say add new researcher, and you would look them up. You can tick the box, and again it starts to build this graph. So small things you can do is you can actually edit these Y and X axes to better suit the data that you're after. The main thing we use this area for is also to see, you can see that when we were in the overview, we could only view certain years. If you come across to benchmarking and I click on Sarah, we can see here that we would view the full list of her publications. And you can see at the top here that the range is now 1996 to 2023. So that's going to capture all of her data. We're going to say export to a spreadsheet. Gives you a lot of option here on exporting, but we're just going to export everything today. And this is the data that it exports. So you can see at the top telling us that we've got Sarah's data for these years. She has 15 publications. For the purpose of this, I'm just going to delete these top rows. Now, one of the functions we use these spreadsheets for is to filter things for you. So the most common areas are your field-weighted citation impact, which is here in column X. So a useful thing you can do is if we turn the filters on, is to sort this from So we'll go large to small. And you'll be able to see your highest field-weighted citation impact. Another area we look at is how many publications you've got that are above 1. You can see that your citations for each article are pulling in here in column W. So again, you can sort those. The next one is outputs in top percentile, which is Z. Okay, and again, you can sort that from small to large, and it'll tell you how many are sitting in the top 10%. So you can see there is 1, 2, 3, 4 sitting in the top 10% of publications for their subject field. And just mentioned SDGs earlier. This data does pull across the SDGs, which is here, column BE. And this data is mapped through from Scopus. So you can see here that she has a couple here that are all mapped to SDG 3. But that is very bit of a quick whirlwind of SciVal, but I'll just stop that share and hand that
We
to
just
you.
had someone ask if you could show how to, on the benchmarking, how you remove someone.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you had Macquarie University, can you just show how to remove one of them?
Yes. Okay, so if I didn't want Macquarie on this chart anymore, I'm in benchmarking, I just come across here and there, if I highlight it, there's just a little cross. And you will see, click the cross and you'll see that Macquarie's disappeared off of this chart. You can take off Sarah, because she's down, and Sarah's one from the bottom has disappeared as well.
Thank you. Okay, so the next tool what we are having a quick look at is Altmetric. So that is a database that looks at alternative metrics. So it looks at things like social media mentions, policy and pattern mentions, news and blogs. You can see here all of the formats are sort of categorized in different colors, and it sort of makes up the Altmetric donut, all the different colors. Yeah, so do you want to do the demo of Altmetric now? Sorry, put you
Yes.
back on the spot.
All good. Okay, so again from the library A to Z database list, we'll go Altmetric Explorer. I just want to point out here that down the bottom in the red, if you have not used Altmetric Explorer before, you do need to register, and you need to register with your University of Newcastle email address. It'll then send you an email link to register. Keep an eye out for that one. It may take up to 15 minutes to come through. And then once you click through that, you'll be able to register or access, sorry. Okay, so the first time you log in, I'm just going to change mine so it'll look. Sorry, so the first time you log in, yours is likely to default to this one, which is exploring all research outputs for the University of Newcastle. To look up yourself, we just say edit the search. Okay, and we want to look in verified author. So again, we're using Sarah. So this one, you just do first name and last name. And you'll see as I type, it does start to populate. Okay, and we see we've got Sarah here, and that's definitely her. We're with the College of Health. So we select that. Okay, and you'll see that it's popped her name in here. There are other ways you can search Altmetric Explorer. So if you only wanted to know if a specific paper you've written has attract any alternate metrics, you can actually put the paper, the name of the paper in here and search directly for that. Or you've got DOIs as well. We're going to scroll down, just say run search. Okay. Now what this highlights page will tell us here is that Sarah has 20 outputs that are being tracked within Altmetric Explorer. 16 of those have received attention, and she has 485 mentions. And Jess mentioned the donut before, how it's all different colours. If I just hover down here, we can actually see that blue social media has 459 mentions. There's red for news and blogs is 25, and other source mentions is 1. But we can actually click on the icon and it tells us here, so social media, there's 455 Twitter mentions, 4 Facebooks. We go across to the red, we'll see that the news has 21 mentions in news and 4 mentions in blogs. And the other source was a video. To see all of your data here, you can click on Research Outputs. And similarly as we did in SciVal, you can actually export all of the data as a Excel. Okay, and you'll see here you've got all of this detail. And if I just scroll across, it breaks down all of this data here for you by each of those areas. So we can see that this top article here had 9 news mentions. If I scroll across, that was the time-efficient intervention to improve older adolescents, had 9 mentions in news. So that's just kind of an overview of the data that you can get. You can actually get it by each area as well. So if I click back on highlights, and for this instance, we'll say we just want to look at the news. So if I click here and just say I want to see these news mentions, and you can see that here it says in this news story, the following citations have been mentioned. So the high intensity interval training, and you can scroll down to see what they were. Again, you can export the tab to an Excel spreadsheet. And the other one that's useful, so you've got your blogs as well. So if we go aforementioned in blogs, again, it tells you here what the blogs were and what papers were cited. And you had other sources, so there was a video. And this was the video, and this is the paper that's been used for that one. If you've had any policy or patent mentions, that's the other area that you'd want to come into this database for, and that sits here in the purple in policy and patents, and it'll same display, tells you the name of the policy and then what papers have been cited. The other ones that are okay to look at, so as we said, research output will list all of your outputs. You can click on timeline and it just gives you a little timeline of when those mentions happened. So you can see that there was a bit of a spike here in for 84 Twitter mentions, or there was a July 2022, there was quite a few news stories, Twitter and blog tracking there. And you can adjust that timeline with these bits at the bottom here. So you could really, if you wanted to know what that area was, you could really drill down to go what was happening in July of 2022, that your work has picked up these areas. So that's the timeline. The other one is the demographics, lets you see where people are that are using or tweeting. So this one is for the tweets, so 455 tweets. You can see where these tweets are coming from. So you've got lists on the side here, 84 in the UK, US. So it's another good way to see where those mentions are happening. And if we go to the news, and again, you can see where the predominant news stories are happening there. So you had the US seemed to be the bigger one there, and there was 8 of those. And again, same as all the others, you can export everything to an Excel spreadsheet if you're familiar with working that way as well. Now there is overview of altmetrics and just how to get that data from there as well. Stop.
Okay, so some of you might be thinking I've already pulled up information from Google Scholar. I've used Google Scholar metrics before, and they look much better than the numbers I have in other databases. Can I just keep using Google Scholar? It's completely up to you if you use Google Scholar, the metrics. The reasons that the numbers sort of track better is obviously it's not looking just at things that are indexed in a specific database. It's looking, you know, at the internet. Google Scholar can track better with other disciplines. There just can be some issues with Google Scholar. So some of the issues that come up with Google Scholar are that there's limited coverage in sort of the humanities disciplines. Overall, some of the information might not be indexed correctly. The citation data is not reliable as it can contain duplicate records, so duplicate citations, duplicate records. It can also incorrectly attribute citing articles. Google Scholar also doesn't provide a definition of what they determine is scholarly, so results often vary in quality. So Google Scholar can track citations and publications that are not scholarly or are of not of good quality. It's also not a stable data set, so citing articles can appear and disappear, so it can be difficult to track over time. Again, completely up to you if you want to use Google Scholar. This is why we always say it's important to, you know, cite where you've taken those metrics from. If you want to use Google Scholar, there is a free software called Publish or Perish, which can bring in your Google Scholar metrics and sort of highlight them and, you know, sort of organize them in a way so it's a little bit easier to look at. So again, completely fine if you want to use Google Scholar, but just be aware there can be those issues with the metrics. So just some things for you to keep in mind when you're sort of creating your promotions applications and including your metrics. Make sure you tailor your story for the audience and the purpose. You don't necessarily have to include all the metrics that are out there. Sometimes that's not necessary. So make sure you sort of pick the best metrics that are going to tell your story in the best way. Make sure you're clear and concise. No single metrics should be used to indicate the impact of a researcher, publication or journal. So it's important to have a look at, you know, the different metrics that are surrounding it in order for you to tell a story. It's important to consult a range of metrics to provide a complete picture of the impact of the research. So tell the story where you look the best, obviously. Just make sure you reference where you've received those metrics from. Also, no system is perfect. So citation-based metrics and alternative metrics can be sourced from a range of databases and tools, and there will be variation and overlap between the sources due to the different source publications and the time periods indexed. So we saw there with SciVal, you know, particularly in the overview module, it only looks at a certain year. You can change that. Insights is the same as well. It sort of has a broader range of publications. Altmetrics are sort of only looking from 2010 onwards, so not every system is going to bring in absolutely everything. And just to, again, reiterate, make sure you include the details of the source of your metrics. So you make sure you're giving that sort of full picture in mind of where you've received those information from. So we've had a question. So are Google Scholar metrics acceptable for a promotion application? As I mentioned, they're acceptable. You just have to bear in mind that there are those issues with quality. Publish or Perish sort of will let you dive in a little bit deeper. So you can check things like where things have been cited, the quality of those, and if there's any duplicates. But it's just a matter of that takes extra time. If things are coming from a database like SciVal or Insights, there's sort of that quality control. It's only looking at things indexed in that particular database. So it's up to you if you want to include that, and then if you want to take that time to go in and check the quality of the metrics in Google Scholar. I understand. Yeah, a lot of people look better on Google Scholar. So just make sure that you reference it so there's that context there for sure. So these are just some examples of how you can tell your story using the metrics that we've mentioned today. So it's just sort of including those metrics, those data, that information into a sentence that sort of explains those metrics. So we've got here, the average field-weighted citation impact of my publications is 1.35, indicating that they're cited 35% above the world average of the field of education. So you're including that, that sort of number, but you're explaining what that number means. My publications have been cited by 546 publications, whose authors are affiliated with 160 institutions in more than 65 countries. So you're sort of showing that the impact of your research and the citations. 7 of my publications are included in the top 10% of cited publications in the field of special education, and 1 is included in the top 1%. So you're saying I'm top cited in my field, in the top 10% and the top 1%. The second example we have is since 2010, I've published 48 articles with 92 co-authors from 86 institutions located in 10 countries. So you're showing that you have collaborated, you know, internationally. I'm first name author on 21 publications and corresponding author on 10. 22 of my publications have a field-weighted citation impact 50% above the world average. My 2021 article on sensory processing is cited 3 times the world average. So they've included overall what their field-weighted citation impact, and then have mentioned a particular article that's rating quite well in that particular field. And then lastly, we've got 10 of my publications focus on inclusive and equitable education, addressing the UN Sustainable Development Goal number 4, which is quality education. And you can see at the bottom, we've got SciVal and the date that we received, like we had a look at those metrics. So always good to include that information. For Altmetric, these are the examples we have for Altmetric. So my research has attracted international attention. 15 of my publications have been mentioned in 45 news articles from 15 countries. And then as well citing the news services and the countries that have been, that your articles have been cited in. The second example, my 2017 article, has been mentioned in 45 news stories from online news outlets. So you can look at overall, but you can also say this particular article has tracked really well and has brought in, you know, lots of attention from different countries. We have an example for citation in policy documents. So 30 policy documents from 12 international organisations have cited my publications. And for social media, we've got a sentence here relating to this research on screen time has been mentioned how many times on Twitter, blog posts and Facebook. And again, at the bottom, always put where you get that information from. So we've got Altmetric Explorer and it was taken in July of last year. So that is a very, very quick overview of the research metrics that you can pull from any from those particular databases. Is there anyone that wants to unmute any questions that they have?
Maybe I can just jump in. It's not really a question, but I just want to thank you because I've trawled through these databases a lot, and even with that, this was really helpful.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
So thank you.
No
Yeah,
problem.
it just opened a few more avenues that, you know, I hadn't seen for synthesizing. And so we can spend enormous amount of time in these databases. And that was a really nice synthesis. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. And just, you know, feel free if you have any questions, please reach out to us and we can have a look at the data and pull out some more information for you. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of you have received, we've seen a few people that we've provided research impact reports for before. So you sort of have those key areas, but if you have any questions about how we got that data or any sort of interpretations, just please feel free to reach out to us. No problem at all.
Yeah, and the small paragraphs are really helpful too, because I can see how you've stripped back the actual sort of repetition of all the actual, just the numbers where you say, oh, it's 50% more. You don't have to write FWCI, you know, is blah, blah, blah.
That's right.
And when we're struggling for words, I mean, it took me a whole day to strip 1,000 words out of my portfolio. You're just looking for every single possible word I can say. So that's really helpful too.
No problem.